Hello everyone, this is the updated version of root system. In this chapter, we will discuss about root system, types of roots, parts of roots, modifications of roots and functions of root. So here you can see structure and functions of roots. When we look at most plants around us, we see the parts of the plant that grow above the soil. So there is some part, so plants are able to stand and firm because of this part, and this part is called a root, which mostly remain under the ground. There are two main types of roots seen in plants. Some plants have tap roots, while some others fibrous roots. You can see in this diagram. So carrot plant is an example of a tap root. When one main root grows from the base of the stem and many other smaller roots grow from this main root keeps growing downwards and goes deeper into the soil. Other plants that have tap root are beetroot, bean. The fibrous roots are seen in plants like grasses. In this type of root system, numerous roots of the same size grow from the base of the stem. These roots grow sideways in a bunch and do not go very deep into the soil. Some plants that have fibrous roots are onion and wheat, are very important part of plant. Look at this boy trying to pull out a bunch of grass from the soil. He tries to pull the grass, but plants do not come out easily and the boy ends up lifting the pot. This shows that roots of the grass plant are holding them firmly in the soil. Thus the root function to prevent the plants from being uprooted by fast wind and flowing water. Now look at this boy digging holes in the soil. While making the holes, the boy removed the roots of some grass. After a few days, he noticed that the plant whose roots were removed dried up and died. Can you think of the reason why the plants died? It means root absorb water and minerals for the plant part from the soil. In absence of the root, the plant could not get water and died. Roots of many plants such as carrot, beetroot and radish also helped to store the extra food made by a plant. Now we all know how important is the roots to the plant. Next is root system. The root system is the descending portion of the plant axis. When a seed germinates, radicle is the first organ to come out. It elongates to form primary or the taproot. It gives off lateral branches and thus forms the root system. It branches through large and deep areas in the soil and anchors the plant very firmly. It also plays another vital role for absorbing water and mineral salts from the soil and transporting them upwards. How is the root suited in structure to carry out such functions? You shall learn in this lesson. Objectives. After studying this lesson, you will be able to define and identify root, distinguish between different types of root system, describe and illustrate different regions of a root apex, describe various modifications and functions of roots, describe and distinguish between primary structure of dicot and monocot root, illustrate and explain the mode of secondary growth in a dicot root, describe the deep-seated origin of lateral roots, characters of roots. Main features of roots by which you can recognize them are non-green due to absence of chlorophyll, not divided into nodes and internodes, absence of leaves and buds, positively geotropic, positively hydrotropic, negatively phototropic. Types of root system. Root system are mainly of two types. Taproot, you can see in the animation. It is the root system that develops from the radicle and continues as the primary root, which gives off lateral roots. They provide very strong anchorage as they are able to reach very deep into the soil. It is the main root system of dicot, gram, China rose, neem. Fibrous root system. In this root system, the primary root is short-lived. A cluster of slender fiber-like roots arises from the base of the radicle and plumule which constitute the fibrous root system. They do not branch profusely, are shallow and spread horizontally, hence cannot provide strong anchorage. Fibrous root system is the main root system of monocots, maize, grasses, etc. You can see this figure. Difference is clear. Taproot and adventitious root. Regions of root. Apical region of roots of any root system shows the same zones or regions as can be seen in figure. A longitudinal section of root apex shows the following structures. Root cap region. It is a thimble-like structure produced by meristematic zone and protects the tender apex from hard soil particles. As the root grows further down in soil, root cap wears out, but it is constantly renewed. In aquatic plants, root cap is like a loose thimble called root pocket. Regions of meristematic cells. So meristematic region is a small region of actively dividing cells called the apical meristem. It consists of dermatogen, peribellum and plerome. In monocot, cap is formed by independent group of cells known as calyptogen. So, by mistake repeat this slide again. Yes, you can see this in this figure. Root cap, calyptogen. Three regions are dermatogen, peribellum and modification of roots. Taproot modification. These are conical root, fusiform root, napiform, tuberous root, adventitious root modification, tuberous root, fasciculated root, nodulous root, moniliform, annulated, assimilatory, epiphytic, pneumatophores, sucking roots or haustoria, prop roots, stilt root, climbing roots, floating. So please wait a minute, 1 second. So do you remember what happens to seeds after germination? The part that grows above the soil is called the shoot system and the part that grows underground is the root system. The shoot system consists of branches, leaves, flowers and fruits. At the end of this module, you will be able to explain how roots are modified for storage of food support and respiration. Explain how stems are modified for storage of food and additional support. Explain how leaves are modified for storage of food support and protection. Roots have two primary functions, fixation and absorption. Root fix the plant to the ground and act as an anchor. Root absorb nutrients and water necessary for plant growth from the soil. Sometimes to adapt to their surroundings, roots are modified to perform additional functions. Roots may be modified to perform four main additional functions. They are storage, additional support, respiration, and additional adsorption. These familiar vegetables grow under, but did you know they are modified? The taproot here are soilant due to accumulation of food. Plants store the excess food and utilize it. When there is a shortage, the soilant roots are called tuberous roots. Next is banyan tree. It has aerial roots hanging vertically from its branches, and when they reach the ground, they act like pillars, giving that additional support the hugely branched tree needs. These aerial roots are called prop roots. Indian lupine or pandanus plant has stilt roots. The plant develops roots that obliquely downward grows. These roots act stilt, provide mechanical support to the plant. Now root of orchid have amazing function. The orchid has clanging roots, aerial roots, but are photosynthetic to the conical spike that you see protruding out around these trees are the modified. These roots are found in marshy places where they cannot get enough oxygen from the soil. So these roots grow upward and help the tree to respire. These roots are called pneumatophores or breathing roots. Money plant has long slender feeder roots that help in absorbing additional nutrients and water from the soil. Observe the feeder root of money plant on a tree bark. Feeder roots make money plant a monstrously growing plant in tropical countries. We now move on to the shoot system, but we will see this in our next chapter. Now modifications of taproot: conical carrot, fusiform radish, napiform is found turnip, tuberosive of 4 plant. This is the figure. Tuberous sweet potato, fasciculated dahlia, nodulus mango or ginger, moniliform grasses, annulated ipecac, modification for assimilatory kinospora. Now modification for absorbing atmospheric moisture. Epiphytic roots. Aerial roots of epiphytic are orchids, greenish and covered with spongy tube with velamen. You can see this in diagram. So modification for beta gaseous exchange. Pneumatophores. Some roots grow vertically up or respiratory roots. These are negatively geotropic. Exposed root tip possess minute pores through which roots respire, appear like conical spikes coming out of water. Modification for sucking nutrition from host sucking roots or hostoria. Parasitic plants give out sucking roots or hostoria which penetrate living host plant and suck food. You can see here. Now modification for strong support. Prop root, root develop from tree. You can see in the animation. Hang downward these branches and ultimately penetrate the ground. The support heavy branches. Next, stilt root, extra root developing from nodes near the base of stem, grow obliquely and penetrate the soil, giving strong anchorage. So climbing roots, weak climbers twine around and clasp the support with the help of climbing roots arising from their nodes. Clanging roots, special clanging root arise, enter the services of support and fix the epiphyte. Modification for buoyancy and respiration. Floating roots, spongy, floating roots filled with air, arise from nodes of some aquatic plants and help in floating and respiration. The great banyan tree in Sipur, Kolkata is more than 200 years old, forming a crown of over 404 meters in circumference and has about 1600 prop roots. Functions of roots: anchorage. Roots anchor the plant firmly to the soil. Absorption. Roots absorb water and mineral salts and conduct them upward. Spatial functions: by undergoing modification in their structure, roots perform spatial physiological functions like food storage, assimilation, absorption of atmospheric moisture, sucking food from host, better gaseous exchange, and mechanical functions like floating, stronger and climbing. You can see this in diagram. Primary structure of root. First one is dicot. Gram is a dicot, a thin transverse section of dicot root showing the following structures. So outermost layer is epiblema, single outermost layer of thin walled cells. Some cells are prolonged to form unicellular root hairs. It protects and absorbs water. Next is cortex, large zone, many layered, cell thin walled parenchymatous with intercellular spaces, stored in water. Next is a portion of dicot root in transverse section, endodermis, innermost layer of cortex cells, barrel shaped, closely packed, show band-like thickening on their radial walls called Casparian strips. Some cells which lack these strips are called passage cells. They help in the movement of water and dissolved salt from cortex directly into xylem. Still, all tissues inner to endodermis comprise steel. Pericycle, inner to the endodermis lies a single layer of pericycle. It is the seat of origin of lateral roots and vascular cambium and core cambium during secondary growth. Vascular bundles, it consists of xylem and phloem patches lying on alternate radii. It is radial. Xylem is exarch, where protoxylem lies towards the periphery and metaxylem lies towards the center. Depending upon the number of xylem patches, a root may be diarch to hexarch. Next is pith. Sometimes the metaxylem of all xylem patches meet in the center. In that case, pith is absent or is small and parenchymatous. Conjunctive parenchyma, parenchyma which separates xylem and phloem. Next is monocot root, maize. A thin TS the following structures. You can see here root hairs. So some portion monocot root in transfer section, epiblema, outermost single layer of thin walled closely packed cells. Some cells are prolonged into unicellular root hairs, cortex, large zone multilayered of parenchymatous cells with intercellular spaces, stores water and food material, endodermis, innermost layer of cortex with characteristics Casparian strips and passage cells. Stele, all the tissue inner to endodermis is called stele. Pericycle, single layer of thin walled cells. The lateral roots originate from this layer. Vascular bundles, it consists of many patches of xylem and phloem arranged radially. The xylem is exarch and polyarch. Pith lies in the center. Large, well-developed parenchymatous or sclerenchymatous stored food. Conjunctive parenchyma lies in between strands of xylem and phloem. The anatomical differences between dicot and monocot root can be studied from this table. These are blinking again. Sorry. So characters dicot and monocot. Number of vascular bundles. In dicot 2 to 6, monocot many. Pericycle, seat of origin of lateral roots, and monocot, seat of origin. Next, cambium, present in dicot, absent in monocot. Secondary growth, present in dicot, absent in monocot. And pith, very small in dicot, in monocot. Origin of lateral roots. The origin of lateral roots in endogenous from deeper layer. The seat of its origin is pericycle, where cells opposite protoxylem divide and form a hump in the endodermis. The hump penetrates into the cortex. Later, the hump differentiates into three regions of the root apex: dermatoxon, peribulum, and plerome. Finally, the lateral roots comes out. The number of lateral roots correspond to the number of bundles. Secondary growth in dicot. The roots grow in length with the help of apical meristem. It is called primary growth. Apart from primary growth, roots grow in width. They increase in girth. This increase is called secondary growth. It is found only in dicot roots. The tissue involved in secondary growth are lateral meristem, vascular cambium, and core cambium. It is important to remember that the vascular cambium and core cambium are secondary in origin and arise from pericycle. Secondary growth is as follows. Pericycle cells outside the protoxylem divide to form a strip of cambium. Another strip of vascular cambium appears in the conjunctive tissue on the inner side of phloem bundle. You can see this in the figure. These two vascular cambium strips join laterally to form a ring which may initially be wavy but later becomes circular due to overproduction of secondary xylem. This tissue inner to primary phloem. Now cambium cells consist of brick-shaped cells which divide and add cells on its either side towards periphery and towards center. Those added towards the periphery differentiate into secondary phloem, and the ones formed towards the center differentiate into secondary xylem. So figure of TS dicot root. There are later stages in secondary growth. In secondary, tissues formed outer to the protoxylem bundle differentiate into prominent primary medullary ray. Thus, protoxylem does not get crushed. Later, cork cambium also differentiate into the pericycle. The cork cambium divides and gives rise to cork towards outside and secondary cortex towards inside. All three phloem and phloderm together form the periderm of the root and as protective function. Finally, all the primary tissue outside the developing cork are slowed. You can see here. So what you have learned in this chapter, radicle elongate to form the primary or taproot. Roots are non-green due to absence of chlorophyll, lack nodes and internodes, leaves and buds. They grow towards gravity and water but away from light. Root system are of two types, taproot and fibrous roots. Taproot develops from the radicle, while adventitious roots develop from any part of the plant except taproot. Apical region of roots has four regions, namely root cap region, region of meristematic cells, region of elongation, and region of maturation. Main functions of roots are anchorage and absorption. In some plants, roots undergo modifications in their structure to perform special physiological functions and mechanical functions. In structure of root shows unicellular hair, single layered epiblema, large cortex, prominent endodermis with Casparian strips and some passes cells. The stele consists of single layered pericycle, radial vascular bundle, exarch xylem and pith. Dicot differ from monocot root in having lesser number of vascular bundles, very small pith and presence of cambium. So these are origin of lateral roots is endogenous. Number of lateral roots corresponds to the number of xylem bundles. Lateral roots, vascular cambium and cork cambium originate from pericycle in dicot roots. Due to the presence of cambium, dicot roots undergo secondary growth. Because of apical meristem, roots undergo primary growth and increase in length. The dicot roots grow in girth by undergoing secondary growth due to the involvement of lateral meristem. Vascular cambium originates as a strip in pericycle cells lying outside the protoxylem and in conjunctive tissue inner to phloem bundle. Initially, the cambium is wavy, but later it becomes circular. Vascular cambium gives rise to secondary phloem towards periphery and secondary xylem towards center. Primary medullary rays differentiate outer to protoxylem. Cork cambium also differentiate in the pericycle and gives rise to cork towards periphery and secondary cortex towards inside. Phloem, phloem and phloderm together form the periderm, which is protective in function. So these are questions for practice. You have to solve yourself. We will meet in our next lecture. Updated version of shoot apex. Thank you very much.